Fix errors, waste, and issues in a couple of clicks. Get alerted whenever you're off track. Sign up at trueclicks.com.
Wix Studio, the platform for agencies and enterprises to manage clients and projects with max efficiency, sharing Wix's SEO tech to help you drive growth.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Content Marketing Digital PR panel. We are thankful to have all of you guys here. How was lunch? It was great. Perfect. If anyone got the fries, catch me after because I have a little rant about it. But yeah, so my name's Karim, and I'm very lucky today to be your host. And we have three absolutely lovely panelists, so I'll just let them introduce themselves. So yeah, could you start us off?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Will. I'm a senior PR strategist for Connective 3. I did a talk this morning on affiliates, so might have seen some of you earlier. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Victoria Roscow. I'm head of content at Dark Horse, which is a Manchester-based search marketing agency where we take businesses from 7 to 8 figures.
Yeah, and I'm Sarah-Jayne. I'm a digital PR consultant at North, which is a Newcastle-based agency.
Awesome. And I'm Karim. I've been working digital PR for 4 years now, and I work at Click-Through Marketing as a digital PR specialist. So just to get kind of like in the crux of it, there's a lot of talk at the moment about what helpful content is and what content isn't helpful. So when you guys are creating content, how do you get into the mindset of creating something that is not just purely for an algorithm?
I'll go first. It's sort of what I touched on in my talk there today, actually, where so Reddit now is ranking for more terms and average than any other website. So we actually found that subreddits and the forums on Reddit are one of the best places to go for finding out what people think of something, you know, questions, problems, challenges. But if it's like an e-commerce thing, especially, how people are using products and scenarios you might not have thought of. So we actually found these like forums like one of the best places to go for like content ideas and weaving ideas into your content going forward.
Solid. Sarah?
Yeah, I think building on that from like a digital PR point of view as well, like whenever we're putting together campaigns, we're trying to think about like pain points for the core demographic, like what are they talking about, what are their problems, how can we kind of meet them there with ideas as well that are like entertaining but also informational at the same time.
Yeah, similar. I think in PR, I kind of see content as like the extension of the press release or the content we're doing. So from the technical side of it, obviously the keyword game, you can track the link back. But also just if you've got a really good story to tell, it doesn't quite fit in the press release. Obviously, it's another nice area to send journalists and people to.
Yeah, and I think you guys touched upon this a bit, but have you seen a rise in trying different content formats or trying like this specific piece of content on different sides? Like I know for a fact I've been trying to work a lot closer with the SEO team now because it's not just like a press release and stories like can we get any SEO value from this? Is there like room for video? So it would be interesting to kind of get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we obviously in our PR team, everything's very closely tight-knit with the SEO team. So it's basically aligning everything that we're doing with the content and the client's own performance, whether it's something that's going out on social media, all the ducks need to be in a row. So from SEO specifically, keyword focuses, any category or product focuses, and just making sure you're kind of doubling down on everything you're doing to give more chance of the visibility increases and things like that.
Yeah, I think I would second that. I think somebody in a talk I heard earlier was saying from an SEO point of view, it's really helpful to go back to your digital PR team and see how they're operating. But actually, I think it starts before that. Ideally, your PR team should be an extension, and there should be those kind of press releases or pictures should be optimized around those keywords, and they should be aware of where we're building links to and what the benefit is of that. And yeah, it's just making it kind of, from a brand awareness point of view, making it work even harder so you're kind of ticking all those boxes.
SEO. Victoria, I'm just keen to kind of get your opinion on this because like you're obviously more SEO focused. How do you kind of integrate with the digital PR team or the wider teams from like an SEO strategy? Do you tend to like lead? Do you tend to like gather information and then work on the on-page stuff?
Yeah, so we'll sort of use our keyword mapping to fuel like what content we want to go after, what keywords we want to like see ranking, and sort of liaise with the DPRs to figure out how can we sort of like cross-sell that. You know, is there something we can create that can sort of tick to, again, like two birds, one stone sort of thing? or vice versa. So like DPR might come to us and say, we found this opportunity which could fuel this creation thing. So it's just a case of like collaborating constantly, keeping channels open, and sort of being open to like how you can both fuel each other and what springboard you can create.
Awesome. I think like we've kind of covered this, but there's a lot that kind of goes into each piece of content, and there's nothing worse than doing a lot of work and then going to a client with your hands between your legs, tail between your legs, hands between your legs, and yours, and then not really being able to provide that ROI. Content is quite difficult to measure. So I'll be interested to hear kind of when you guys push out a piece of content or when you push something on the blog, what kind of key measurements that you're looking at that maybe aren't the traditional ones, like other things that you find super helpful for stakeholders to kind of bridge that gap, because we're all content marketers here, majority of us, I'm assuming. And so we know that, if it gets links, it's good. If it does a specific number of organic views, it's good. But what else kind of can we look at to exemplify that value?
Just to jump in on that, I think it depends on obviously who your key stakeholders are. For a few of the clients I work with, we've got more kind of brand focused. So they look at more like traditional metrics like share of voice. We look at if like key messaging's been included. Those kind of things can kind of give them a bit more context around what we do as well, and it can help with buy-in. I think it's really easy to just focus on like keyword movement or, traffic or the more digital marketing side of things, but having that route back to the traditional side of PR as well, I find really beneficial to kind of bridge that gap.
Just a second on the PR side of things, I suppose, from our point of view, it's very much on visibility and authority. So what is the blog doing that's assisting the press release with the keywords and similar content and category focuses? And is that marrying up together? So when you use something like Systrix to see if your visibility is going up, hopefully those two have both worked together and impacted it.
Makes sense. Victoria, any issues?
Well, like you'd mentioned, like traffic and impressions and all that sort of thing. It's like that's just not what we should be looking at all. They're just like vanity metrics that mean nothing, really, aren't they? So you want to be looking at things like where are the clicks, where are the conversions, which ones are driving the sales, and like with things like informational content, that's really hard to measure because it's like how can you measure if someone's read to the bottom of a page? So what we started to do is test out adding internal links to things that people will kind of want to download or buy, like something which was like really clickbaity and a hook. And if they have clicked that, then they've obviously gone down the page and read it. So you can measure if it has been actually properly, read through and action has been taken. So using things like Google Tag Manager is really useful for that. So any way you can sort of create these little tracking things, like Google Tag Manager is great for that. Yeah.
I think it's really important to kind of view content even if it's a top of funnel piece of content, in its role to drive sales. And I think if you can link that in any way, it makes it a lot easier because you're not going to someone being like, well, we got a link from the Times. You're going like, we sold 5 extra mattresses this week because of it. So I think, that's absolutely awesome. So this is kind of like something in my talk, I touched upon it, and like I tend to find it somewhat difficult to balance, but like quality versus quantity. And a lot of us love what we do to the point where it might hinder you because you try to do something so perfectly. When do you know that something is good enough? Do you have any like specific ways to think about how much content you're pushing versus how good that thing is? Like, what's your quality assurance system?
I think from my side, basically just on basic things like traffic, the user experience, the technical side of the page on the blogs. Was it easy to go on and convert and buy something? Almost seen it as like a shop front. So this is in this position because you see it at the checkout and you think, I might buy it there. So it's very sort of almost basic, but we can measure it in that way in PR to say, yes, we've had this much footfall, this much traffic, this many clicks. And again, from my sort of PR mind, it all sort of goes together with the visibility too. So quite basic stuff, but the really sort of simple indicators that it's been good.
Solid.
I think if we're talking about like quality as well of like kind of concepts and ideas as well, I think it's there's a really interesting theory about like the 6 different hats you can wear to have like critical thinking, and I think that's really helpful in ideation or when you come up with an idea, and it's all to do with somebody, people are more inclined to wear a creative hat, or somebody's more inclined to wear the analytical hat, or the kind of problem solving, whatever it might be. I think when you're sat in a room and you're coming up with ideas, you almost need to flip into all those different modes, because like personally for me, I'm the kind of person who runs away with an idea and I think that's amazing, but you have to ground yourself and be like, what value is this going to add? Because it's all fine and well saying we think this is an amazing idea that could go viral, but so what at the end of the day?
Yeah, I think definitely the same thing as what you said with, I think the best way I've found to figure out is this good quality is like, go back through it and imagine I am the audience I'm trying to, speak to. Have I found this helpful? Have I learned something from it? Has this answered a question I've got? And if I can answer yes to any of that, then it's like, right, I'm pushing it live. And if in a month down the line I think, actually I could have done that a bit better, that's fine. You can go back and reuse it, repurpose it, refresh it, and it's like you can get a second wind out of it. So I think putting the emphasis on like, is it perfect or is it finished is almost useless because you kind of want to be going through your content anyway after, 3, 6, 12 months, whatever it is. You want to be refreshing it anyway. Yeah. So perfection is not really the goal anyway.
Yeah. No, I second that. I think I would rather ship something that isn't 100% perfect, kind of measure it, then see how I can improve on it rather than just have the finished article. Because if I spend like waiting for it to be the finished article, I'll never get there. I just want to circle back to like a point that you mentioned, Sarah, about the like brand and traditional, and I think it kind of links really well to kind of the next bullet point I had, which is like backlinks and digital PR and people being so focused on that link metric. But I think it's also important to take a step back and think of content in the wider brand, just traditional. And I was just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Do you guys have any traditional brand metrics that you focus on, or is it just purely the digital ones that you're focused on? And how do you have that conversation with a client that it might not be as measurable, but it may be just as important?
I think obviously every client's completely different. It depends on their brief. But yeah, in terms of measuring digitally, obviously I work in a digital market, so it's all the kind of basic things around that. But it depends on the client. Some people come to us and say, we're really looking for the SEO value of having the content there, but we're really keen on telling a story. We do a lot of tone of voice work and make sure, we're really sort of aligned with how they want to portray themselves to the public. So yeah, quite sort of simple from the digital side, but also there is a bit more in-depth, particularly with the content team, on how they're sounding and how they're putting the message across.
Yeah, and I think that is a big thing, isn't it? It's making sure you're aligned from day one, because it can be easy to feel like you're a detachment if you're in an agency setting from your client, and it's getting kind of under the skin of what they do, so you can report on what they need to know or what they want to know. Again, it depends on the client. It depends on what their job role is and how they're being measured from above as well. But yeah, as I said there, like key messaging I think is really important. Like we work with a lot of clients where there might be a focus on sustainability in one quarter, and if we can make sure that we're ideating around that, and any kind of coverage that we're getting out has that in it, that to me is really important, because it just shows that you've been aligned from day one and it's all working towards the same larger goal.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it like involves a lot of like us creatively thinking. But sometimes I will walk with this really good piece of research. I know what I need to do, and I go to the client, the guy's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So what kind of struggles do you guys have when it comes to sign off, rather than clients not really knowing what content is?
I think one of the challenges, and it might this might not be something that everyone relates to, but if you're in a digital PR set and you're not only reporting into or answering to the client, you're also reporting into perhaps another agency, and that I find or have found has been a struggle in the past. And that's about like education, that we're not here to step on your toes. We're not here to, muscle our way in on the relationships that they already have with journalists. It's about, we're going to further how you work, and even if that means, can we look at what you're doing and help from an SEO point of view? Can we make sure that if you've created a landing page for a more traditional based campaign, like how can we optimize that? So it's not like we're not adversaries, because ultimately we are all there for the same reason. I think that has been a huge challenge, and something that like I've found in digital PR.
Yeah, I think it's all about the trust of the client. I don't know about you guys, but if you get a new client on board, excuse me, the first 3 months, first quarter is very much almost play it safe, get the links in, hit your KPIs, and once you build up the trust, you can take the risks and put in a campaign that's a bit out there and a bit different. And once they're sort of on your side, even if it doesn't pull off and it goes wrong, at least you've given it a go. So yeah, client relationships, I'd say, is absolute key to any sort of risk or creativity.
And education as well, like if they're unsure of something, like if you say like you do tend to play it safe in the first bit, and then when you start branching out, if there's questions on like, why are we doing this, is it going to work, that's when you kind of come up with your education. And if it's a well thought out idea and a good strategy, you should be able to say, well, we know your competitors have done this, or we know these kind of campaigns work really well because we have the data to back it. It's just seeing it more as a challenge to say, right, this is our opportunity to educate you on what we do.
Yeah, I think it's evidence.
Yeah,
like
100%.
if you've done something different for a client before that's really pulled off, and you can just show it to them in a case study format, something like that. Might be completely different to their topic, but yeah, the trust. Once the trust is there and they believe in what you do, it's great to have the freedom. You know?
Yeah, I think it's sort of same what you were saying with the client services aspect of it. So like the biggest bit of pushback I've noticed with content workflows and on-page optimizations is where the client doesn't feel like you've quite got them, either whether it's like a brand message, brand point of view, where they are in the market share, or like their commercial goals. So like spending like a good like 6 hours with the client, really like go get pissed with them. So that helps. They'll loose after a glass of wine. You get as much information out of them as you can. To like figure out like their actual goals, because you can't do it over like a Teams call in half an hour. Like dedicating that time at the start of your strategy makes the rest so much easier, makes the sign off like just, yeah, you're done.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think one of the mistakes I did a lot with some clients, especially bigger ones where they have their own marketing team, and I assume, the marketing team, they get it. But then they have to then report back to the CMOs, and they need specific metrics. And like when I rock up to them being like, let's do a countrywide treasure map thing with like a golden goose type theme, I haven't really built up that trust and that authority, like you were saying, with case studies, with like a mutual relationship, getting pissed with them. And I think it does get very difficult. And I think it would be something that I would have gone back and said, well, you should have earned that trust first before you kind of start pitching that. Because it's also like, it's a gamble for them, because they then have to go and talk to the CMOs and CFOs and all the Cs. All right, so I'm just going to pause here for a second and open it up to the floor. If you have any questions from anyone.
We just explained everything so well.
All right.
Yes.
I was going to ask.
All right, if no questions, I'm going to head to the next point, which is kind of my favorite point of today's backlinks. There's a lot of talk, I think, in the industry at the moment. There's a tweet circulating around about a certain Google, someone saying that a certain number of links isn't necessarily what you need a lower number. So just kind of like to get us started, what do you guys think of what's happening at the moment, about how people are viewing links and the actual effect of it on the clients you're working with? So like perception versus what you're actually seeing.
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. Like obviously this week, it's classic timing, pre-Brighton SEO, something massive comes out and you think, oh, well, yeah, I might as well quit my job. Nobody needs links anymore. But it's easy to kind of see that and think, oh God, like, but really it is about, we'll say it and we'll say it again, but quality over quantity. And I've been a big proponent for that for a while now anyway. And I think that is because come from a more traditional side of things. I think, and again, that comes with, I feel like I'm repeating this education side of things, but if you've got a prospective client that's coming in and saying, we want X amount of links, and it's just not possible, it's then your job to say, we can give you however many links, but they're not going to be good. They're not going to have any value. And it's that constant reassurance, because ultimately, if they're coming to you, they're coming for you to expertise, not to be a yes man, not to say, yes, we can build you 100 links in 2 weeks or whatever, something crazy, I think. And it goes back to that constant message of, if Google wasn't around, would you still do it? Would it still have a benefit? That's really what you should always be thinking about when you're putting out a campaign or you're trying to build links or build coverage.
Yeah, I think this is something that happened in the news this week, but PR changes every single year. So there was a period where quantity was the thing with links. So dare I say, even buy them. People used to buy a load of the links. But now it's so saturated with digital PR. It's one of the main parts of digital marketing, I think, that can make you stand out from an SEO perspective. So it's how you do become original in that. And I think that's where the quality comes in it. It's not about just getting a link anywhere to try and build up your visibility that way. It's the content that you're doing. It's the relevancy of the publications. It's if it's trending now. Is it almost clickbaity? Like, are people really interested in these topics? So yeah, definitely the quality over the quantity. Yeah, 100%.
Victoria, from an SEO perspective.
I think there's always something going on like this. I think it's, we're a bit sadistic with SEO, aren't we? That like it's a very volatile search marketing channel. We've, something wrong with us to want to choose this journey, right? There's always something going on. It's kind of the nature of the beast. There's always something. Sometimes it means something, most often doesn't. And if it's from Google, probably don't trust it.
Fair. Getting it from the horse's mouth. All right, so getting into like the specific types of links, I know, Will, you touched upon this today, but I don't know how many people over there, so I'm just going to touch on it again. Do you guys also see value from different types of links? So like from affiliate links, no follow links? If you had to, obviously the ranking is quite easy to see the value in it, but how far apart are they in terms of value from your opinions?
The more diverse your backlink profile is, the better. So too much of anything can seem spammy to Google. So it's completely about balance. So we've had clients before that will only accept a follow link and nothing else means anything to it. So if you just do get follow links, it can still be seen as spammy. So the no follow sort of balance things out. Obviously, as I spoke about affiliates this morning, from an SEO perspective, they obviously don't have as much value, but there are some benefits of them. And then depending on your client's goals, again, just coverage without any links. If they just want brand awareness, it's still going to help. So they all play the part.
Yeah, I'd second that. Basically, word for word. I think as natural as you can be to indicate that, it's a real person building those links or brand mentions, whatever it might be. And again, really just goes back to like, what is the client's overall objective? Like, what are you there to do at the end of the day? And maybe, I'm not going to go out and say I love affiliate links. I definitely don't. Like, they're the scourge of digital PR at the moment, but there is almost definitely some benefit in them if you're in an e-commerce side of things. So if you have like an internal affiliate team or they have an affiliate team, it's about kind of working with them as well to say like, how can we change our reporting to fit this a bit better? And it's also saying, what are dream publications as well, I think are important. Like for some people, it is about getting in where they feel like their audience is going to, and that might mean an affiliate link. And as long as you're upfront from the beginning and you say, yes, we can almost definitely get you an ideal home, but it's almost definitely going to be an affiliate link, then you're managing expectations from day one as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I think when it comes to like those like undesired links, so let's say a no follow or like just a completely unlinked brand mention or something, just because it's unlinked now doesn't mean it can't be linked in the future. So like it's a good thing to sort of keep a track of like where these mentions are and where you have a good content piece where it could actually link out to, like almost like go back and reclaim it a little bit. Yeah, that's
a really interesting viewpoint. I think they're undesired, but I think a lot of people don't understand there's also like value behind them. Like I remember when I first because I recently got like a couple of e-commerce clients, and I remember getting linked and I was like, oh, this is sick. And then I checked, I was like, what is this relative attribute thing in front of it? And I think one of the people that had already had like a few e-commerce clients told me, you probably would not have gotten into that publication without it, because publications sometimes have self-interest in mind, and they just sometimes only cover people that they have that affiliate with. So would you rather an affiliate link or absolutely no coverage? So I think there are ways to look at these. And I think you touched on it really well. It's that diverse backlink profile that isn't like you've bought 100 links from someone who's slid into your LinkedIn DMs. Finally, on the links point, are brand mentions the new link? Or will that ever happen in the near future?
I think yes. I'm always going to say I think so. I think it's a strong indicator contextually that, you're a trusted source still. Like, I don't believe that doesn't hold any weight. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Yeah, so I think it's all about balance, isn't it? And that keyword you just said, trustworthy. And again, it's down to what your business or your brand needs. You could have a brand that's just all about, like, they want to be seen in the biggest places with the biggest audiences. If they get a brand mention, they're going to love that. It's going to be great for them. But if it's on the other side, like a really SEO heavy, like it has to drive visibility, they have to be follow links, then maybe not as much. But all depends.
Cool. I honestly think it's like, even if it doesn't become the brand mention, the messaging itself just helps further. Let's say you have like a mattress client, and then you're talking about back pain and different types of mattresses. If that messaging is out there and your product solves that issue, even if you weren't mentioned, just the message being there is beneficial for you in the long run. So I think people just disregard it as just like a useless thing, while people that read stuff or talk with or listen to creators, they're always influenced by these people, what these people say in general. So yeah, don't discount brand mentions. They are very cool. So yeah, I think what we're talking about now is a lot about bigger strategies and large campaigns. All of us work in like really big niches or like with really big clients. What about the small talks? Like a small business, someone runs their own website. They might not have as much time to push out as much content or do as much digital PR. What do you think are like the 2-3 things that you would give advice to a small business to get started within content marketing, within digital PR, to kind of just get them going? Let's say it's like someone who owns a business is just running it, or like a hobbyist site.
First thing that comes to my mind, just because it's a small business, is budget. So a lot of PR tools that we're lucky to use cost a lot of money. So finding the free resources, I'd say first and foremost, literally as simple as things like we were talking about this earlier, like literally as simple as Twitter to find your journalist contacts, LinkedIn, response source to try and get in touch with journalists, obviously just your emails, like really basic things, because you don't have to spend a lot of money at first. It's just obviously those tools will help you. There's free tools like Moz is free to check the DR of sites. There's different things on Google you can use. So there are things there to begin with. And then obviously if it does grow, you can start investing. So I'd say, yeah, don't spend too much money at first and then see how it goes. Yeah.
I think like that proactive outreach as well, like if you're a small business, it's a really nice way to kind of introduce yourself to kind of core journalists within your area and say, this is the brand, this is what we do, these are the experts we have, you know, this is the data that we have. That kind of goes back to more like a traditional brand, like media relations kind of tactic. But I think it takes time, but that's where you want to be building those relationships so that they might prefer to come to you over somebody else that's maybe got a bit of a bigger budget. I also think reactive PR is just a fantastic, very, very quick fire way of getting yourself out there. And the barrier to entry for reactive PR, I think, is low. The tools that we typically use are free tools. They're not things that require, I mean, aside from like outreach and like BuzzStream and stuff like that, like if you wanted to do it, you could, you know, go have a look on Google Trends, have a look on Pinterest, take a look at TikTok, see what's happening, or even what's happening within the news in that area. You don't necessarily need a huge media database either. There's a lot of access to journalist contacts on Twitter. Like Will said, Twitter's just Twitter or X, however you want to call it. Fantastic free resource. And I think I've seen the stat come up a few times actually over the last few days, but I think it's like in the 90% plus journalists use X or Twitter now. Yeah.
Just a second your reactive point. Even if creative writing isn't your strong point, you don't have to outreach a press release.
No.
So you could just expert comments, you could do some news jacking with it. If it's say you're in interiors, it could be really high res imagery that you're sending out with just product descriptions. So like, yeah, if that's not your art form, then you don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if you're like one of those small brands, with on-page content, you can really outdo the big names quite easily because they're often quite sloppy with their SEO. I talked about this quite a lot in my talk earlier, but they, you'd think with the manpower and money behind them, they'd get like everything absolutely perfect, but often their content, terrible. Terrible. So if you've got a great opportunity there to create much more detailed, much more useful, much more tailored content that will absolutely do better. But in terms of like backlinks especially, obviously like one of the main ways you get backlinks is like listicles from like Cosmo or, you know, newspapers, magazines, whatever it is. And if it's product related especially, you can guarantee that at least 2 of those listings are going to go to Etsy and Amazon. Whereas if you've got a better product, which is way more relevant, way more, you know, useful than like a generic Amazon one, you can always contact our journalist and say, can you swap it out? This is better, here's why. So you can steal it from Amazon. and it kind of works.
Yeah, I agree. I think as just to talk about a lot of the points you've mentioned, I think as a small business, it's how do you get the biggest ROI at the start so you can continue doing this bigger and bigger tactics. So it's like, I always say, like, if any small business comes, because like I've had a few friends that are like, oh, can you help me doing this? I'm like, it's too much. All you need to do is just be a bit scrappy. And it's like, if you're scrappy at the beginning, just trying different things, knowing how to measure them, and using the free tools, like you're saying, like journal requests, all you need is Twitter, email, and a dream. Like, you don't really need much to get started, and it can get you really high DR links for absolutely nothing. Yeah, I agree with you on the content point. A lot of places that we seek content now are like specific creators on TikTok or specific blogs on the web, because like we don't really trust what this person is saying from a bigger brand, and the smaller content tends to be a lot more niche and specific. So I do think, even though like the helpful content update, which is terrifying to me, that it's quite, a lot of creators have been like, what's the point in this? But I think that eventually that type of content will get better, because it's in Google's best interest to surface the best thing to cater to the audience. All right, I'll just pause here for a sec. Any questions this time out? All right, got one. Let's go.
Where are we? Stick your hand up, Pete.
Hi guys. Yeah, just as a digital PR, something that I think a lot of us are continuing to see is that dreaded reply from a journalist that unfortunately we don't link, or we've got a no link policy. It's something I'm starting to see more and more often, certainly from those sort of niche sort of industry publications. And I'm just wondering from you guys, why do you think that is? Do you think it's, I mean, from my, maybe it's a selfish point of view, but I don't really see a reason why, for example, if you've done a great campaign, you're sort of provided that linkable asset on your client's website, why would they not link? I don't really get. Do you think maybe like a lack of education within sort of the media publications about external linking in general? Just wondering what your thoughts are.
The main thing I can think of, I don't know about you guys, but when I've spoken to journalists, it's so they can be neutral. But a lot of national publications will randomly be linking one week, and then you go the next week and they won't do it anymore. So I think the two reasons are maybe they've linked too much, and it's who they're linking. So they'll maybe link really sort of trustworthy sources in one feature, but they won't give your brand a mention. So I've had this with finance clients where they'll link to Martin Lewis, but they won't link to mine. Which is a bit annoying, but I think they have a policy of who is deemed trustworthy. So yeah, I think the neutral element very much is, if we don't link to anyone this week, everyone's happy.
For everyone's mad.
Or everyone's fee.
This week being the key turn, because I don't know about you, but I find it changes like from like staff to staff on a team. And like that is really frustrating, because I know for a fact like we'll get links in one publication, then the following week somebody will say, well, that's just out of our editorial policy, and you feel like, and you're sort of torn because you want to send them on and be like, well, clearly not, but then you don't want to risk losing that link as well.
Yeah, someone's lying basically.
Yeah, exactly. But or like just not knowing, and I don't think, like, no disrespect, but I think it's just not willing to admit they're not really sure, and nobody knows where the party line is. I think I've noticed working in different countries, it changes as well. So we've worked a little bit in Ireland, and I've noticed that it's much more common to get a follow link or just a link in general. They're much more generous with it. And I don't know if that's also because they're maybe not as aware. And I think in the UK, we're so saturated now with digital PR that like journalists are becoming much more aware and much more savvy that we want the coverage, but really what we want is the link. I also think it's like about monetizing as well. Like, to go back to Will's point about affiliates, like that might be a conversation that the publication's starting to have, and starting to say, well, why are we handing these links out for free when we can charge for them and make money from them? Like it could be all manner of things, really.
Yeah. Also, I think it's, I think in general, a lot of the link conversations, the journalists are now, like you're saying, they're getting a lot more savvy. And I think they're getting influenced by it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the journalists that I've spoken to, but again, that might be a biased subsection because they are the journalists that are willing to talk to PRs. They have said that I want to maintain a relationship, and I know that that's the win-win. So when you give me data, because I need you to provide me data, because there's no way I'm hitting my click target without it, I will provide you with a link. So I think the journalists that are doing that are just kind of like shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion. But again, they might not know. They might have a policy that is beyond them. I don't really know how all the publications work. But I just think journalists will be incentivized to do that, because in general, they might, if let's say you're pushing somewhere constantly and you're not getting links, but you're getting a lot of clients that are asking for links, you might just stop pushing that specific publication. And if a couple of people had the same opinion, that journalist now getting hundreds less stories a week. So I think I honestly don't know why they would do it, but I would be inclined to say sometimes it's higher editorial policies that they sometimes have no control. Like I've had journalists tried to go in and change a specific link a couple of times, but it would constantly turn into an affiliate and they couldn't do anything about it. So that's sometimes they're willing to help, but they just can't.
It's very inconsistent as well, like Sarah just said. So you can have a really good thread with a journalist and the conversation's going great, and then you ask them for a link at the end of all this work and they say we don't do links, and you could literally go on their homepage and find 50 links. And then it's who's making the decisions. So you'd assume it goes to their editor, and then the editor has the say. So I don't know, maybe they're in a bad mood someday, I don't know. They don't know, but
sort of those no linking weeks.
Yeah, it is, but you've just got to, it's annoying, you can't really put your finger on it. And you could even go to a journalist that's linked back to you 100 times, and then one day they just go, no, we don't do that. So yeah, it's tough.
Any more questions? Yep.
Hi, I'm Dana from a fully integrated marketing agency called Hallam. I'm just wondering, because the digital landscape, the digital PR landscape is so different from traditional PR, how are you building relationships with journalists?
It's a really good question. We're based in Newcastle, so in terms of like what people think of traditional PR relations, it's that classic, like we're taking a journalist out to lunch in London, and it's, you know, it's very London centric, and like it can feel really hard if you're trying to do more of a traditional like relationship building, but also just like being there and being helpful. For me, that trumps being able to like wine and dine somebody. Like I would much rather be available on an email and say like, I've got this here for you, or like you're quick to respond, or if you're offering something, you're consistent, you're reliable. That for me is what is building the relationship. And yeah, it definitely can. Probably the same with you, because you're up in Manchester. Like it can really feel like it's hard to do that, but if it's done in the right way and with sincerity, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think the simplicity of, excuse me, sending them what they need. So within your media lists, just make sure you're sending the right thing to the right people. So if it is traditional PR, you don't want to be pushing links at the top of your emails. So I used to work with an interiors client, and they just love imagery, high-res imagery. So at the top of the email, before I even wrote a word, I sound like Deirdre Fowler. Before I'd even written a word, I'd put the imagery at the top, because I know that's what they're there for. If I was doing a product launch, there wouldn't be a big press release. I'd just be like, this is a teaser. Do you want to try this? Can we get this to you? So just knowing what they want and making sure someone's on top of your media list and they're not all just thrown into one big pile so everyone's receiving what they shouldn't be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm of the opinion that the whole relationship with journalists thing is not true. At the end of the day, the journalist will not cover a story that is bad because they like you. I think it is providing consistent value. And then over time, you have to think of it, they're getting 800 emails a day? If they recognize your face or name, that might be a slight edge. But at the end of the day, it's about the subject line, it's about the story, it's about you consistently providing value, that they then next time they need a financial expert or they need someone, or need a specific piece of data, they can come to you. I personally think the days of, I don't think they have time to be favoring people, because if they favor someone and their story tanks, that is like one full story that didn't get enough clicks, and that's their head on the chopping board. So I personally don't believe in the relationshipy side. You can't have, I have some relationship with journalists, but it's purely a friendly thing. Like if they ignore my email, I'm not like, okay, we're not friends anymore. It was just not the right story for the right time. Like I keep it separate personally. Yeah, Victor, I'm curious if you guys within like the wider like link, but do you guys have any relationship with other websites in general that you guys work with that aren't like media?
A little bit, so some of our more B2B clients have some affiliated type sites with white paper, board paper, report type things, and a lot of that stuff is very lead gen gate kept. So like we're wanting to try and like get this content ranking or get this out there for a link or something, but it's kind of behind like a lead gen wall. And trying to liaise with this, board white paper report type provider company with the media is like very difficult, like how to help each other understand what we both need out of it and balance it.
Yeah, I think the reason I ask is I think content collaboration is sometimes really just looked at from a digital PR perspective, but on some of like the tinier SEO projects that I sometimes help with outside of work, just having relationships with other people and different websites, seeing how you guys can provide value to each other, that can also be a really good way. That I believe in relationships, but it's like it becomes, again, because you can have that discussion and they're less busy than journalists. But yeah.
Hi, so I come from an event marketing background, and as much as we basically kind of like love to have our, full control and authority over our content and PR strategies, there's always times where you have to kind of like, deal with negative PR essentially, and kind of like, just kind of go into that like emergency mode. So my question would basically be kind of like, what are your top strategies to kind of like future-proof your content marketing and PR essentially to, build in or weave in that negative marketing or bad press?
I think having that really open relationship, because we personally don't deal with like a lot of crisis, but obviously it does happen for clients. Like, unfortunately, it'll happen to us all at some point. And it's having that open line of communication. So you're the first to know. So right, we need to pause activity, or we need to make sure that like if people are coming to us asking questions about this, we're directing them to the right people. And I think that's where you start to see as well people that have purely come from a link building background that maybe don't have some of the soft skills of PR, of managing people in difficult situations. So I think, it's kind of like preempting that and being able to say like, just hold your hands up and say like, I am not the person to deal with this, but I will direct you correctly. And just being kind of having a bit of humility about it, I suppose. Like,
I think just address it immediately. So if you work with a client that has something of sensitivity, so for example, I have a debt collection client. So when we outreach things, obviously you already kind of know that you don't write these things. You write it in a certain way, helpful, resourceful. So if you get a new client on board, just have the open conversation. Keep track of things on social media. I know you can use tools for the sort of sentiment data, so you can see all the negative feedback you're getting on Twitter and things like that. And just be very aware of the issues. And as soon as you sort of know those inside out, then you'll naturally start to avoid them. And then if something new comes up that you've never seen before, it's always nice to have a crisis management, someone on your team, crisis PR person. They're always good to have. But yeah, just know it inside out. Just expect the issues, so you're on top of it.
Yeah, I think as well, don't forget everything like blows over. Like, unless it's like a massive thing and you've leaked oil into the sea or something. But it's like, a lot of the time, if you're consistently doing good work and something happens, like you launch a Willy Wonka thing, it doesn't really work out as well, then it's not the end of the world. If you have a track record of delivering, you could just hold your hands up and just say, and people will be more receptive of it. Like recently, there's this YouTube group. I just heard about the drama. I didn't really know what happened, but they tried to take all of their YouTube stuff and paywall it. And people were like, screw this, I'm unsubscribing. I don't want to do this. Within a week, they reverted the platform and they were like, we're going to give everything for free for the patrons. They reverted that entire thing because they were okay to raise their hand and say, well, that wasn't the strategy. We tried to do a good thing. We're trying to monetize, but it didn't happen. So I think mistakes happen, but I think if mistakes are happening consistently, that's an issue. But if it's just a one thing, I think people are more forgiving than we give them credit for.
Yeah, I think as well, just to build on that, like, really make sure your media list is tight and it's relevant, because nothing will annoy somebody more than sending something that they fundamentally disagree with. We have a meat client. I would never ever send that to anyone. I would do my research and make sure they're not plant-based or like whatever it might be if it's an ethical thing. Same with I've had CBD clients, and that's obviously quite a contentious topic because a lot of people don't think it's a real thing. And you do get pushback if you've not done that initial research, and you're almost starting your own crisis there as well. So yeah, just being really hot on your media lists, and less is more with that, I'd say.
Very good point. Yeah. Oh, sorry. it would have been easier.
Hi. It was interesting what you were saying about like sort of bad press and how it blows over and that, because funnily enough in my company we have some bad press that just happened 2 years ago, well before I joined, and it has not blown over. And it was essentially a data breach. And so myself and my team, we're quite keen on the idea of opening up about it and saying, yeah, this is a thing that happened. However, here's what we're doing to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But there's resistance for that. So I guess what I'm wondering is, if you were in that position, what would all of you do? Like, I mean, do you sort of agree with what we're saying 100%, or can you sort of understand what our higher ups are saying? Or I don't know, I'm just curious about your thoughts, since we were talking about bad press.
No, it's interesting that you say that, because I think, some things, like, let's say you're like a doctor that was caught, I don't know, like harvesting organs. Not that that's what you guys are doing. It's an extreme example. I wouldn't then trust that doctor. It would be very difficult. So I think it's very dependent on, like, I'll circle back on my point and say it also is dependent on the niche and what happened. It's quite like there's a lot of gray area. But what I would say is, if you have a good product, and it's happened to so many people before, people that try to blow over it, it doesn't really work. But when you've said, okay, this has happened, this is what I've done, being open about your processes, it then leads you to, for people to trust you again. And I think the only thing that covers that is innovation. Because like, if he's still the best doctor in town and he's harvested one organ in 50 years, I would probably still go to. Yeah, so I that's my personal opinion. But it's interesting to see what you guys think.
About the doctor?
Not the doctor.
I think. I also think stand your ground. So if this, how long did you say it's been? 2 years?
Yeah, and basically we get a we're getting like one or two people who keep commenting on our social media saying, yeah, don't trust these guys because they had this data breach. And I was like, yeah, just keep on deleting those comments, guys. And it's like, I don't think that's going to work.
I do think stand your ground. If you've kind of addressed it and it's been apologised multiple times, you don't want to sort of be known to just being a bit of a sap. You've said your point. So the only thing you can do is going to be a slow burner, but just build up the positivity around it. It's the types of campaigns you're doing, advice you're giving out. If it's a lot of social media, I'm guessing there's a lot of social media comments.
Yes.
So have a look at your content strategy as well, and to try and create content that's almost impossible to be negative with. And if they are negative, sometimes they need to get a life, don't they?
I mean,
feeding it.
Certainly this comment it is. Yeah.
Because that's what they want. But they just want someone to buy it. So I think that's a really good point.
I would say that I obviously don't know what your background or role is, but like, don't overlook a crisis manager. I don't know if anyone's seen that scoop about the Emily Maitlis Prince Andrew, but that is a textbook example of ignoring somebody who's really, really disciplined in their field and then going with what you think is right. And the consequences of it are almost irreversible. You could make it so much worse. That's not to say that is the case, but I would always err on the side of caution. But if you do fundamentally think that there's benefit to that, like going back to what we said before, like, have you got an example of where another company's done it and done it really successfully, and how have they done it, and how can we replicate this? And but just proceed with caution.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
obviously,
I don't know if we'll ever be allowed to do it, but I was just curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
I actually used to work for a not-for-profit in Manchester, and because it was not-for-profit, it worked alongside the GMCA, local authorities, and that sort of thing. So there were a few crisis things that happened there relating to government things, obviously, so that's quite big stuff. And like, one of the best learnings we had from doing that there was to have such strict contingency plans in place, like crisis management plans, like management packs for every single campaign or piece of work we were doing. So like, we knew who to call out of hours. We had like social posts already ready in place for, let's say this thing happened, we planned for it, we can have something else go straight away. But it's the follow through afterwards that was like the big thing. So it's definitely good to say, stand your ground, hold your hands up, integrity. Yes, this happened, it was our fault, or this was the reason why, here's what we're doing about it. But it's the follow through afterwards that really helped them. So it's like your audience or customers or whoever it is will feel a sense of like betrayal or being let down or something. So it's like the building back up of the trust immediately afterwards is like the biggest thing.
So thank you. Yeah, sorry, I think he was first, if that's okay. Sorry. I'm just going to let you go back and forth. I'm really sorry.
Sorry for making you run. So I'm in B2B SaaS, and I've been hearing a lot from like big tech marketing folks in the industry that they feel like the future of content marketing is around owned content creators, sort of like building your own internal influencers, either by hiring sort of big content creators or acquiring platforms, as opposed to sort of traditional digital PR and going out and using external influencers and content creators. I was just wondering what your view on that was, and like whether it was a positive step, and maybe if there were any sort of like pitfalls in going down that, as opposed to going out and sort of working with, you know, traditional digital PR journalists, influencers.
Interesting. Any influencer?
I can give it a go. I'll give it a go. So at C3, we have a social media team that we've really started to integrate with what we're doing in PR. So whether we literally have someone that is our interview PR expert. So he will interview celebrities and to transcribe the text and outreach it. We have a team that literally just gets influencers in, so we have the content, we outreach that as well. So in terms of PR, it genuinely does work. If it's a celebrity status, or if it's really useful, if it's like a cleaning influencer and the tips are really good, we share that and it does get pick up. So from that side of it, where I am, it has been working, it has genuinely grown. Obviously, we got the news today that TikTok might be shutting in America. That's a bit of a thing. But yeah, it genuinely has words, and I think because it's so relevant, Gen Z is such an audience I find at the minute that journalists want to talk about. So anything from an influencer perspective, it definitely sort of pricks the ears up a journalist.
Yeah, I think I've worked somewhat with influencers, but I think there's like this point comes from my personal just usage. I tend to trust creators a bit more than sometimes nameless sites where I can see a face behind it. So if your question is, would I rather be outreaching PR, or would I rather have like a very specific face of my brand that is pushing stuff? Very much depends on the audience, very much depends on what the competitors are doing. But I think having a face of the brand works really well. I think like there's some protein brand that I will not name because I'm not affiliated with them, I don't like them, but they have a face that is on every YouTube ad ever. And I think that's mainly their marketing strategy. Get that person to just scream about it over and over and over and ask you to try the green stuff. And then eventually he'll get enough people to do it so it works. But when it comes to own media, like good luck buying the Guardian or the Telegraph, there's still people doing that. So I think you can't, big press is always going to be big press. So you're always going to have to go to where these people already have reach. But if you can start off having some face of the brand, which can be included in the SaaS company, you don't even have to be a named influencer. They've bought someone who's coming up as well. I think that is a strategy that works, a strategy that I personally as a consumer do trust.
Like a brand ambassador.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I think there was two. Yeah, and then...
Just going back like a couple talking points about like reactive PR. So I recently have like joined a new agency, and I've come from like an agency that was really big on like reactive PR, like worked really well. And this agency is like almost like keen to like really put their foot into like reactive PR, but hasn't like really done it much. So I wrote down my question so I didn't forget it. It was, do you think we're at a point where reactive PR is producing like more results rather than on like data-led campaigns? And then also like this is like more personal, like individual basis, but would you say like your push is like more reactive or like more on like your hero campaigns?
I'm a big reactive PR person.
I looked at you straight.
Yeah, no,
I know
it's my jam. But that's not to say I don't think there's merit in those bigger campaigns. It's again very dependent on budget, but I think from anecdotally, reactive is driving most of our results now. Whether or not that's just because I tend to favour towards reactives, but across the board for most of our clients, it is driving most of the results. And again, we know that because we're doing like month by month analysis, and we are feeding that back constantly to the team. And also the whole team's getting much more involved in the reactive process. So like our content team is vital to that as well. It's no longer just that we as PRs do it and they kind of check over our work. Like we feed into each other all the time. But again, I don't think that's to say that there's not merit in the bigger data-led campaigns. I really do think there is. It's about striking that balance, and again, it's about like, what does your client need? What do they want? What are the set KPIs? Like, are we reporting quarterly or monthly? However it works. I don't know how you guys feel about.
Yeah, similar. I think reactive's obviously great for putting a bit less in than a big planned campaign and getting a lot out of it. So it does depend on the sector you're in and the client as well. So if you're in finance, it's a specialised subject. So sometimes the journalist probably knows more than we do. So if you can just send a little clip of expertise from your client and reactively newsjack it, send it out quickly, then they probably prefer that than loads of tables a day to telling them things they already know. So yeah, it completely depends on the client, but I think it's all about the versatility of what you've got, a bit of everything. I completely agree. I think you still need to have that big brand awareness, cause a ruckus, standout piece that takes time to develop. And then the quick wins and the reactive are great to sort of fill in the gaps and get the quick links in.
That's very good, because it's a risk reward thing, right? Like, you've got the really big campaigns that might create a ruckus, but they're also a lot to invest in.
Yeah.
So I tend to like always start with reactive whenever a client joins, because it's just the easiest wins. But it is also like most of the time for us, like, it's a 1 or 2 links per comment basis. It's like rarely does it go viral and go everywhere. So I tend to try to like look at the other ones, like these ones as like incremental, and then the other ones kind of do well as we go along. But there's also like a middle bit where it's like proactive-y reactive. So like, that, okay, so like Coachella's happening, and like then can I get my car client to talk about a specific thing that you could do with the radio if you're missing out? Like, that is a reactive thing that you could react to what's happening there, but you can plan it kind of ahead. So you can kind of marry the two. But I do think reactive for us as well has been the most.
It comes with a caveat though, like reactive, it's really easy to just think, let's jump on this. Is it relevant? Because if it's not, don't do it. Like, just don't do it. Like, and like, you have to remember that. And it's really easy when you hit the ground running with a client to go like let's jump on this up, and try and shoehorn yourself in, like, every once in a while. And like, typically, I don't know if everyone else has experienced, but when we build reactive links, it tends to be branded anchor text most of the time, and which is great. You want a mixture, but if you really want to be focusing on those keywords or those niches, like, how likely is it that you're going to get, I don't know, like something about like engines come up in the news like on that very week that you need to build a link? It's unlikely. So that's where those big campaigns like can help.
You can dictate the message.
Exactly. Yeah.
100%.
Tell a bigger story, can't you? I think sorry, we don't have much time, do we? Yes. On the reactive point as well, think from the journalist perspective, they need to think like we do for our clients. They want the traffic, they want the clicks, they want to make money. So if there is something really relevant, it's basically clickbaity. Everyone's going to be talking about it, whether it's something on TikTok, like you mentioned, Coachella, something in the news. Yeah. So if you can send something really quick and be one of the first to do it, it could go everywhere. So there are some really good benefits from it. But like you said, telling the bigger story will still come from the bigger pieces with your brand messaging.
There's one question here. I'm really sorry.
If there's no time,
No, there is.
Yeah, okay. So if we can go back to links for a second, please. So excuse the gap in knowledge. I'm an SEO with limited digital PR experience. So something I found really interesting, and one of the most difficult things is building links. So my question would be, you touched on this a little bit, of what is your personal opinion on branded, unlinked branded mentions? And at what point would you go and pursue that opportunity? I'll give you a real example. I worked for an educational, company created educational content. There was an unlinked brand mentioned from Oxford Uni, which is massive, and nothing happened because I could not convince the stakeholders that this is big. So how would you convince the stakeholders? At what point would you jump on the opportunity, and what do you think about these opportunities?
Just a quick one, even if it's not, I can plaster Oxford Uni on my website. That slaps. So, but yeah, Victoria, do you want to take this one as an SEO? Just like from the SEO benefit.
Yeah, sure. So I think that when you see this like unlinked mentions, brand mentions, right? You kind of want to jump on quite fast and say, oh, I've noticed, can you please link it? And you get a pushback, and you maybe give it a week and you push back again. Give it a longer time. Do a hero campaign, link back to a different point. You know, just because it's not happening immediately doesn't mean it can't happen further down the line. So just like, it's really helpful, I think, to sort of keep a log of where these mentions are, of like, I really do want links to be there. Not of every single unbranded mention, because not all are great, but have like your like wish list, I suppose, of like, I wish they'd link to me here. You can reach back to them with something else maybe. So it's not linking to the thing you wanted to go to originally. Maybe it's going to something else more relevant at a different point. Maybe the journalist that you don't like has left the company, there's someone else you can talk to instead. You know, a little bit of time does help, and that's what I think is quite good with digital PR. Is like, it doesn't have to be all now. You can sort of like refresh it, keep it a bit.
And quick points for you guys.
I mean, yeah, obviously in an ideal world, you want to go after that straight away, don't you? Like, academic sites are like just the gold dust. But again, I think to build on what Victoria was saying, like, make sure that what you're offering them is also like has value to that site, and kind of explain that to your stakeholders, and just say, you know, I'm not going to go out with a generic email that says, please add this link to this article that I've seen. Like, you need to kind of tailor it and say, like, we know we've been mentioned here, you've mentioned this data we've done, or we've worked with you in this way, and just add as much context as you can, and also like explain why it'll be, like, to your stakeholders, say like it's beneficial for them ultimately, and I'm going to try and communicate that in a way that's not so like generic, because I think that is a mistake people make with unlinked brand mentions. And something that I was taught early on, which I had to kind of relearn, was you don't just go after them in a blanket statement, you have to add something to it as well. Has to be beneficial both ways.
100%. I would say definitely go for it. How many times do you go on a website and see Oxford endorsed and you're like, you know what, who are these people? It's just, I think there's more value to it than that.
Yeah, thank you. But by the way, can you believe that someone did not jump onto that opportunity?
If
like,
send it my way. And let them link to anything.
I know, thank you.
But yeah, I think we've run out of time. So just like, thank you so much for joining me on this panel. Thank you guys for coming.
Demand sphere. Limitless visual insights from the SERPs. Unlimited dashboards and users. Easy to use and easy to scale your growth to new levels.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.